When the fish are gone, we're no more. This river is what our ancestors fought to give us a name, to give us identity. This river is our identity. The canoe people, river people, our great grandfathers and grandmothers, they canoed along this river. Other tribes canoed up this river to visit the villages. This river defines us. This is Stillaguamish. The importance is to make sure that it's here for my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, generations to come. Working together is the only way we can keep this river going, making sure the environment for the river is safe and prosperous for us.
I think it's almost a cliche now when I hear my elders say like, oh, we used to be able to walk across the river on the backs of salmon. But that's true. We had so many Chinook. They were so large and plentiful. You didn't have to think too hard about it. You didn't have to work too hard for it. It was just there and it provided for us and we provided for it. And now certain reaches of the river, they rarely see Stillaguamish Chinook in them. We know that fisheries are so inhibited by our stocks. We want to get all of Washington's fish back, and I think a huge part of doing that is ensuring that stocks like Stillaguamish aren't depressing everything else.
Salmon are important not only to the health of the river, also the health to our culture. We rely on salmon to feed all of our ceremonies, our funerals, namings. We're a fishing community, and without salmon, you lose those teachings, you lose that connection to the river, you lose your connection to your identity as well. So we're trying to do everything we can to keep those cultures alive.
So there are a lot of projects that are happening in the Stillaguamish. Some of them are big and some of them are small, and they're all important, they're all needed. This is a collaboration as co-managers, and that's between the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Stillaguamish Tribe. We have projects that range the entire length of the watershed, from the upper reaches of both the North and the South Fork, all the way down into the confluence and into Port Susan Bay.
I am a third-generation Western Washingtonian. Spent most of my life here, surrounded by water. I've always loved this river, the Stillaguamish River. And as salmon habitat, it's getting there, especially where we are now. Leque Island has a really interesting history. They built a wall all around this island, and it was really beautiful farmland for probably 100 years. We had long conversations with the agricultural community, and after a number of years, we restored it back to habitat. Once the machinery was out of here, nature took over and seeds started coming in from the water, growing vegetation naturally. Channels are starting to form on their own in here, which makes really lovely habitat. And then you have this water flow from the river and water from Puget Sound coming up and meeting, and that brings tons of food for these guys to eat. So it's essentially an all-you-can-eat buffet for juvenile salmon, and it has been shown that salmon who grow in estuaries actually have a higher survival rate. They're more likely to come back and spawn.
I was born and raised in the area, and I was an avid sport fisherman as a kid, really having a sense of wonder just watching salmon, and I think I still have that as an adult. So we're standing today at the Trafton Floodplain property on the North Fork Stillaguamish. It's in a location that historically the river had a much broader footprint on the floodplain. Today you just see one channel, but historically there were multiple channels across the floodplain. Trees would move down and form what we call log jams, and those jams were an important stopping point for juveniles on their way out to sea and for adults on their way up to spawn, and also scoured out deep holes where cold water would come in and help keep the river cool. It was levied off and kept away from the river for more than 70 years. The floodplain forests were cleared, the log jams were removed. The land was used for other things for a long time. And so the tribe purchased this property to store those natural processes back onto this footprint. The ways the river used to function and this site used to function, we're looking to restore with this restoration project.
I moved to the Pacific Northwest to work with salmon. I love salmon, I love steelhead. I love taking my kids out to go fishing. I just love being out here and working with these fish. We're out here at Whitehorse Hatchery. The large role that Whitehorse plays is it finishes the sub-yearling program for Chinook that come out of Brenner Hatchery from the Stillaguamish Tribe. It also has a winter steelhead program. A large part of what hatcheries do is augment returns of salmon on rivers, providing tribal fisheries, but also sport fisheries, southern resident killer whales, feeding opportunity, and then of course the health and sustainability of a river. All this biomass coming back up into the rivers, that provides a lot of nutrition that everything feeds off of and uses. Hatcheries work with the wild populations to bring better health up into those systems and watersheds. These fish had adapted to these specific watersheds. Problem is their numbers are dropping and the wild numbers are dropping substantially. And so how do we not lose that genetic information? Hatcheries can play a role in that, maintaining some of these fish to keep these wild genetics here before they fall below a threshold where we stop seeing returns or if you've lost something that you can't get back.
There's a lot of work still has to be done. And that's not something that can be done overnight. It's been years in the process. But if we don't do anything now, we're not going to have this. I want to have my kids be able to come out here and fish and have those memories. I want those stories to continue. This river has those stories. This river has memories. And I'm grateful that we have the programs that we have now to try to bring things back.
As tribal people, our identity is to connect with the same land that our ancestors have lived on and taken care of and stewarded. We have farmers in the watershed who have inherited their farm from their parents, who have inherited it from their parents. That generational connection to the land isn't just for Native Americans. The work that I'm doing today is not for myself. It's not even for my kids. It's so that I can be a good ancestor. It's making sure that 7 generations from now we'll have a population that doesn't have to worry about rain when it falls because they're getting flooded.
Floodplain reconnectivity that allows for dispersal of heavy flows, that's natural flood management. What is good for the salmon is good for us. There isn't any component a salmon needs scientifically identified as part of their ecosystem that humans don't also need or don't also benefit from. It's going to take all of us with a desire to move in the same direction. That's the big push moving forward, is trying to get us all in alignment so that we can paddle together, so we can move forward for recovery, because it is possible.
Every piece of land has a history. It's really about finding a balance, having habitat that we can improve and we can restore while maintaining viable agriculture. I do think we can find a balance. I don't think we have an option. Both are so important culturally to this region. If either of them disappeared, we would lose our identity in Western Washington. And that's what makes working with the community, working with landowners, so important to get this work done.
Our dugout canoes were very important for our travels up and down the river, to haul goods from the mouth all the way up, far up rivers you can get. A lot of people probably don't realize what it takes to be in the canoe, because sometimes we're going to have to do the hard work to change route, portage out of the river and do something new, get back on course. So it is important that we're all working well together. We've done it with the Department of Fish and Wildlife through the years. We're doing projects together. We're side by side doing restoration work. We're side by side managing the resources, trying to accomplish the recovery of our Chinook for the community.